Hey, algebra. All right, so we are getting into applying systems of equations. So these are more like word problems in real world situations where you may have to use solving systems of equations to problem solve somewhere. So this video is going to be basically your notes. I will also share this Jamboard with you on Classroom with all of my notes in it. So it's up to you if you want to put this in your notebook and have it as like a set of notes, or if you just want to save this video, or you can save the Jamboard with just the notes without the video. It's kind of up to you on how you want to save these notes. All right. So applying systems of equations. So there's the 4 steps that you're seeing here. Okay. So the first step is to let me get a color going. First step is to define your 2 variables. All right. So it says be sure to write them out. I want you to write them out every single time. Okay. And I'll show you what I mean in the few examples that we'll have. Then step 2, once you know what your variables are, you're going to write your system of equations. So you're going to have 2 equations. And then thirdly, you're going to solve that system. So this is your choice. So you now have 3 strategies to solve the system. You can either use graphing, which I don't recommend because it's just not the most effective strategy, substitution, which is probably going to be a lot of the time, and then elimination. And that's only if you can get it to work out to eliminate something. So I would probably think that substitution is going to be kind of your go-to strategy. And then number 4, it says find the answer. So since these are real world situations, you're not just going to have an ordered pair and leave it at that. It's going to ask you a specific question, and you're going to have to make sure that you're actually answering the question at the end. Okay. All right. So first example, it says at Manny's Taco Shop. I also recommend that if you don't have a piece of paper out or a whiteboard out to do this along with me, that you go ahead and do that. Pause the video now and grab a piece of paper or a whiteboard so at least you're getting some practice along with me. All right, so number 1 tells us at Manny's Taco Shop, you can get an order of chips and 2 tacos for the $9.25. The cost for, 2 orders of chips and 5 tacos is $21.75. What is the cost of an order of chips? Okay, now let's think about this. It's going to give you a lot of information, and it's your job to kind of break it up into those manageable pieces. So when it says define your variables, the question at the very end, what is the cost of an order of chips, helps you figure out what your variables are. Okay, keep in mind, variables are unknowns. We don't know the cost of chips. So I can say, keep in mind, system of equations, we usually use x and y. So I know that one of the unknowns is the cost of an order of chips. So I'm going to say cost of chips. And I'm just going to label that as my x value. Okay, it really doesn't matter as long as you're keeping things consistent. So with a system of equations, I have 2 variables, so 2 unknowns. So cost of chips is one of them. What do you think the other one is? If you said tacos, you'd be right. Okay, so the cost of tacos. Okay, do you see how they're kind of related? Because it's talking about orders of tacos, orders of chips, but we don't know how much just one order of tacos is. So that's also one of our unknowns. So now that we have our 2 unknowns, we defined our variables. Step 1 is done. 2, it says write your system of equations. Okay, so I have 2 variables, and now my system of equations, basically each equation is going to be talking about 2 different situations. Okay, so I'm going to start with equation number 1. So looking at my first kind of sentence here, it says you can get an order of chips and 2 tacos for $9.25. Well, that's like one situation, right? That's one order, an example of an order. And then, then it gives us a second order, right? But again, we still don't know the cost of chips and cost of tacos. So the first equation is going to be this first order, okay? So think about how I'm going to represent this. So it says an order of chips. Well, that's an order means just one order of chips. Well, one order of chips is going to be X amount of dollars. And so I'm combining that. So that's going to be a plus 2 tacos. So tacos, the cost of tacos is going to be represented by Y. So that's 2Y equals that 9.25. So that's the first order. Second order says the cost for 2 orders of chips and 5 tacos is $21.75. Okay, so my next equation, because remember a system is 2 or more equations, but 2 for now. We have 2 orders of chips, so that's 2 times the cost of chips, which is X, so 2X, plus, and 5 tacos, so 5Y equals that $21.75 total. Okay, notice that you're dealing with money here, so the $9.25 and the $21.75 are both money, and the X and the Y's represent the cost of the chips and tacos, so it's all kind of dealing with money here. Okay, third step. Now we actually have to solve the system. So you have your 2 equations. That's the hardest part, is really identifying your variables and writing those systems of equations. Other than that, you guys have been practicing to solve systems, so I think that you're going to be good there. So I'm going to do the best I can to fit this in on this screen, so bear with me if I'm kind of writing small or slow. All right, so I have my 2 equations. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rewrite my equations up here, if it lets me. So X plus 2Y equals 9.25. And I'm looking at my other one, and I'm going to be using, I'll tell you the strategy in a second. Let me get this written down. 21.75. Okay, so now that I have these here, now I have to choose, am I using graphing, which I don't recommend, 2, substitution, or 3, elimination. Well, I noticed that I have an X and a 2X. I'm going to go ahead and choose to do elimination. I could have done substitution too. Either way is okay. So I'm going to multiply this first equation by 2 so I can get those 2 X's to be canceled out. So when I do that, I'm going to change my color to red. So I'm multiplying here. So 2 times X is 2X. 2 times 2Y is a positive 4Y. And then 2 times 9.25 is going to be what? 18.50? Okay. So now at this point, I want the 2 X's to cancel or to eliminate. So I'm going to subtract the second equation. Okay, so 2X minus 2X gives me nothing, so I'm not going to put anything down there. But then 4Y minus 5Y gives me a negative 1Y. I like to put the 1 if it's negative, just so I know that Y is not by itself yet. And then I have what here? I have what? 1850 minus 2175. I'm using my calculator because I don't know what that is off the top of my head. And that gives me a negative 325. So again, I need to solve for Y, so I need to get rid of this negative 1. I'm going to divide by negative 1 on each side. So that just gives me Y equals a positive 325. Well, let's think about what Y represented again. I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to be looking at, okay, well, Y was the cost of tacos right here. So the cost of tacos right now, I know is 325. So now, that's not really what it asked for, right? It asked for the cost of an order of chips, so I have to keep that question in mind up here. And in order to find out the cost of chips, I'm going to use that Y value, and I'm going to solve for X. I'm going to go to one of my original equations, and I'm going to kind of get over here a little bit. So I'm going to use that top equation just because it seems a little more simple to me. So I have X plus 2 times Y, which in this case I know is 325, is equal to 925. Okay, so now I can solve for x. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply. So I still have that x plus, that's going to be what, 650 equals 925. And I'm going to subtract 650. And I'm left with x equals 275. Okay, so now I know what x is equal to, which x represents the cost of chips, so that would be like $2.75. Then the cost for tacos is $3.25. Now I come back to that question, make sure that I'm actually answering what they're asking for. And it says, I'm looking for a cost of an order of chips. Well, the cost of an order of chips is X, which is $2.75. So, one bag, oh, it was supposed to be capitalized, of chips is $2.75. Okay. Next question. I know these are kind of long, so I'm going to do 3 of them, and it might be kind of a long video, so you feel free to pause, take a break, whatever you need to do in between, okay? All right, next one. I'm going to use this highlighter type thing that I don't know if it's really a highlighter. It says the length of a rectangular garden is 4 more than 3 times the width. If the perimeter of the garden is 104 feet, then what are the dimensions of the garden? Okay, so it says the length. So whenever it's telling me, okay, dimensions of the garden, dimensions means length and width, sometimes height to me, but since we're dealing with area, I don't have a height. So the length of a rectangular garden is 4 more than 3 times the width. That entire section right there is pretty important. Okay, it says if the perimeter, okay, perimeter is important. It's telling us something about that. Of the garden is 104 feet. Then what are the dimensions of the garden? Okay, so dimensions plural, meaning length and the width. Okay, so this answer, when we get to that 4th and final step, it's going to be asking us for the entire dimensions. Okay, so both answers, not just one like the last one did. All right, here we go. Step 1, define your variables. Okay, so the unknowns, remember that question here at the end, the very end usually tells us. So the dimensions, well, that's the length and the width, right? So the x and the y values are 2 unknowns, are length and width. Okay, and I could have used L and W, but I'm going to choose to use X and Y. Okay, it doesn't really matter what variables you use as long as you're keeping them consistent throughout the entire equations. All right, next step, write your system of equations. Okay, so that first part says the length of a rectangular garden is 4 more than 3 times the width. Whew, all right. That section right there is telling me one situation, right? Just like there were 2 orders last time, I'm going to have 2 situations here. Okay, so one situation is telling me the length, and the second situation is telling me the perimeter of the garden. All right, so, and I'm looking at this. All right, the length of a rectangular garden. Well, the length is my x value, right? So the, whoa, I don't want to do that. I'm not really sure why it did that, to be honest with you. Put that back up. Get rid of those lines. Sorry about that. All right, so x is my length. Oh my goodness. I don't need it to reload, to be honest. I don't know what it's trying to do. So I have x. Oh no. We're doing a weird thing. Hold on. All right, we're back. So x is my length. Oh my goodness. X is my length. And it says the length of a rectangular garden is like my equal sign, okay? So the length is like X equals 4 more than 3 times the width. Okay, so if I have 4 more than something, I have to have something first. So I'm going to leave a little space in my equation and put plus 4. Okay, that's 4 more than whatever is going to go in that kind of empty space. So it says 3 times the width. Okay, 3 times the width. Well, width is y. So if it's 3 times that width, it's going to be 3y. Okay, that's my first equation. First situation done. Second situation, if the perimeter of the garden is 104 feet, then what are the dimensions of the garden? Okay, so when I have a garden and it's rectangular, okay, so you can kind of see my green garden over there. If I'm finding perimeter, let's say my width, so these are like y values, right? Those are my widths. And we'll say that these are like my lengths. So if I were to find perimeter, I'm adding up all 4 sides, right? So I'm taking y plus x plus y plus x. Well, that's 2y plus 2x, which is going to be equal to my perimeter, right? I'll just abbreviate perimeter. So when I think about that, I have to think about, okay, now what? I have the perimeter of the garden is 104 feet. Okay, well, I still don't know the length, I still don't know the width, but I know there are 2 lengths, and I know that there are 2 widths that make up a perimeter. Whoa, why am I putting it there? 2x plus 2y, which is going to be equal to the perimeter, which in this case they gave us a number, that 104 feet. So 104. So now that I have my 2 equations, all I got to do is solve. Now, but just by looking at this, yeah, I could use elimination if I wanted to manipulate some equations, but it's already kind of set up for me to use substitution. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So down below where I started writing things in already, I'm going to erase actually. And I'm going to use substitution in this case. So I know that x is equal to this quantity here, that 3y plus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute that in right away into my other one. So that's 2 times x, which is that quantity now, 3y plus 4. And then I'm going to continue on with this bottom equation. So plus 2y equals 104. Now I can solve for y. I'm going to distribute. I'll get 6y plus 8 plus 2y. You guys are confident in this area, so I'm just going to kind of skip. All right, so when I actually finish solving, I get y equals 12. Okay, so y I know was the width. That's what I defined as my variable. So I know that the width is 12 for now. Now I still need to find the other dimension because remember it asked for both dimensions to answer the question. So now I have to use one of my original equations and go ahead and solve for x. I'm going to choose this top equation that I created because it's already kind of solved for x. So I'm going to go over here and say x is equal to 3 times y, which I just got to be 12. So I'm going to substitute that in, plus 4. Well, 3 times 12 is 36. Plus 4 is 40. So x is equal to 40. Okay, so I have to be specific because this is like a real world thing. I need a label. So I know that the length is equal to, I know it's the x value, and I just got that to be 40. So that's 40 feet. And I got the width to be the y value, which was 12. So 12 feet. So make sure you're labeling whenever possible. Okay, so now that I've answered the question, I can make sure that I check. Okay, so I can substitute in x and y values and make sure that it makes sense with the information that it gave me in the question. And if it does make sense, then I know I'm good. If not, I may need to reevaluate what equations I kind of made. Okay, moving on. All right, so I decided to delete that third question. If you need some more help or more guidance, please send me an email and I will either set up a Google Meet with you or make you a video or whatever we need to do to figure this out. All right, so try your absolute best using these steps, and you got this, guys. Let me know if you need anything.